Zach Rhoades joins us once again to take a look at Storm's newest strong pearl symmetric, the Summit Peak, which is available now. Zach is bowling on the Kegel Chromium lane condition that we always use for testing. It's a challenge pattern at just under a 7-to-1 ratio. It's 42 feet long, 25.5 mils. That puts it on the heavy side of medium for both volume and length. It's not as easy as a house shot, but not as punishing as a sport pattern. I also have Zach's layout information up on the screen in both languages. The layout is a little different, and I know some of you are going to cringe about drilling half the pin out, but he picks numbers and goes. Wherever the numbers put the holes, that's where they're drilled. He also broke the surface shine lightly by hand with a 1500 pad before finishing with a 3000 pad. I'm going to switch it up here. Usually I just monologue while you watch ball reaction, but I'm still going to give you the details first while we watch to get your eyes warmed up. Then we're going to go back and tackle it zone by zone to talk about the adjustments he made when moving around, where it felt the most comfortable, where he felt like he had to help it the most, so on and so forth, just to get deeper and give you a much better idea where it's going to fit both for him and for you. The Summit Peak is a straight-up Pearl Summit. The TX23 cover formula is an updated, stronger version of the TX16 cover stock that's on the Phase 2 and now on the Journey. The strong symmetric centripetal HD core from the Sonic and Supersonic now finds itself inside the new AI or Amplified Inertia outer core again for the Peak after that combination debuted on the original Summit. AI enhances or amplifies the core's natural or existing strength, driving the RG down to 246 and the differential up to 056 in 15 pounds, making it an absolute monster. The core creates a super heavy roll that makes it look like the ball is trying to dig through the lane. It wants to slow down quickly, and while it is longer and sharper than the original Summit, that doesn't mean it's actually long and sharp. It's more in amped up Zen territory, though it is more continuous than the Zen. It picks up and then firmly chugs through the deck. Some balls have strong back-end moves where they pick up and drive, but some of those can cut or slice through the pins too sharply, which results in some weird and undesirable leaves. But the Peak is like a big diesel truck that keeps the pins low, which is important for pin carry. It looks like a tank rolling through the pins, and I'm not meaning to say it hits like a truck. I'm trying to describe a specific element of the ball reaction, which is that it's controllable and fairly smooth and gradual, but the heaviness of the roll translates to a very strong and relentless roll through the pins. This ball really has no weaknesses for Zach, as you can see. From the first zone, it's strong and rolly enough that it controls the angles, but clean and sharp enough that it gets through the pins the right way rather than just puking and being flat. Moving in, the first two were a little more up the lane or closer to the pocket than he intended. Plus, he also realized he didn't have to back off on the speed from the first zone as much as expected because this ball rolls so strongly, and despite being a pearl, I think people are going to be hung up on cover types forever, unfortunately. It's a really strong cover too, so it has both a strong core and cover working together to produce a really balanced reaction, again, much like the original Zen. However, unlike the original Zen, the Peak handles angle extremely well. If you go back to Zach's Sublime review, it was a little touchy from straighter but loved angle, while the Zen was really good from straight but didn't want to get too deep. The Peak can do both. While he did have to slow his speed down, up his rev rate, and get more around the ball as he got deeper, he didn't have to do it near as much as with the Absolute Power, for example. Just very slight adjustments, and the ball continued to get up and drive through the deck with authority. Comparing it to the Summit, same surface prep, but a little different layout here. Obviously the core is such a monster that this kind of layout helps get the ball down the lane further and blend more. Once again, Zach needs no help getting a ball to hook, so using a layout to tame this strong of a ball down will let him use it more often. Same core, of course, but this is the hybrid version of the same cover, and while the layout contributes, my Summit and Peak are laid out exactly the same, and the Summit is definitely the earlier and smoother ball, so to my eyes, the layout makes the Summit a touch slower than it would be if it had the same layout as his Peak, but I still find the comparison to be highly accurate. Once again, stronger balls will be earlier and smoother, plus more resistant to angle. The Summit is the stronger ball, not by much, but it's noticeable, so naturally it's going to be more resistant to angle than the Peak. Earlier rolling, earlier hooking, smoother back-end motion doesn't cover as much ground down lane, so on and so forth. As he moved deeper, he did have to slow it down and bang on it more to get it to shape than he did with the Peak. I think that's actually visible, and I continue to be impressed with how such a round and slow shape beats up the pins so much. Occasionally it'll leave the flattest corners you've ever seen, That's par for the course with smoother balls, but it makes up for it with an above average carry percentage on the off hits. Flipping back and forth, the shape similarity is unmistakable, and they really do remind me of the Sonic and Supersonic, but the Peak has enough cover to keep up with the Core, where I didn't think the Sonic did, and the Summit subtly tweaks the shape enough to keep it from being lazy and pukey like the Supersonic was too often. Again, very similar rolling balls, just a slower friction response for the Summit and a faster one from the Peak. This should illustrate the point better about more hook not necessarily meaning more board coverage. Same cover, same core, same surface finish. Summit is a hybrid while the Peak is a pearl, so conventional wisdom says the Summit should hook more, and it does. The definition of hook is, however, greatly misunderstood and misused. On the flip side, this doesn't always mean a cleaner and more responsive ball will be able to play deeper. It mostly depends on cover strength. The Exotic Gem will cover more boards and play deeper than the Gem, but those two have a very strong cover. The Absolute and Absolute Power, however, having a weaker cover means the Power will be the stronger ball across the board, while the Absolute will need more friction to be able to play as deep as the Power. I know it's tricky, I know it's confusing, but Gem line creates its own friction, while the Absolute line has to depend on the friction that's available. It's a big part of creating and offering varied ball reaction options. Anyway, once again, the Summit Peak was released on January 19th with the Absolute Power. Have a Zach review for that one as well. The video is linked on the screen if you want to check it out. Down in the description is a link to Bowler's Mart that will get any of the balls featured in this video ordered for you. I do have to note, of course, that I do receive a 5% commission on all sales through the links. And of course, don't forget my code Rhoades10 to get 10% off your order at checkout at CoolWick. Thanks for watching, and may the strikes be with you.